this is Jen O'Connor. I'm a research analyst here at Freeform Dynamics. I'm joined today by Tony Locke, our Director of Engagement and Distinguished Analyst.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Tony. So the topic we'll be discussing today centres around research we recently conducted in partnership with Cisco, in which we heard from over 100 senior IT professionals who worked throughout the COVID-19 global pandemic. What we'll be delving into today is some of the rare silver lining moments that have arisen for them and for organisations more generally in the midst of this otherwise immensely difficult time. So, Tony, undoubtedly this year has exacted a terrible toll and posed arguably one of the most challenging times for businesses, leaders, employees alike. But can we identify a few key areas in the workplace that might have seen an unexpectedly positive shift as a result?
We can indeed, not the least of which is that for many organisations, not all, they've proved that life can go on when you have a remote workforce with people working from home. That's proved to be very, very effective for many companies. And the technology that we've been putting in place gradually over the last few years has been there to actually support that. So IT has kept many companies together and enabled meetings to carry on, not quite as usual, but still the meetings are taking place, decisions are being made, the business is moving.
Absolutely. And I think, as you say, as you rightfully point out, with the uptake of technology inherent in mobilising an entire workforce to home working, is the importance of social interaction. And I think what came through strongly for me, at least in our interviews, was the sense that leaders have begun prioritising or seeing the real utility and benefit in promoting social interaction, especially when teams are working remotely and having to meet virtually. Would you say this is the case as well?
Absolutely. The research results very much reflect that. Many organizations in the past have maybe talked about the importance of their staff and how they were the glue that held the company together and the crown jewels, etc. Now they actually realize that this is emotionally true as well as intellectually. And they've begun, some of them, to actually put in place processes to try and encourage social interaction. It's not just workplace interactions, having business meetings that's important. It's just having conversations with your peers and your team colleagues to find out what's going on, who's doing what, how are you feeling, is somebody going to be off sick or on holiday next week, and encouraging that social interaction to keep the teams together. That's something that we've seen a lot of research evidence saying that organizations have recognized the need for that, and they're actually putting in, some semi-formal processes to encourage that to carry on.
And obviously, whilst we shouldn't assume that virtual interactions can reach the same level of richness and depth as the in-person, face-to-face social interactions, I think it's certainly a positive outcome that leaders do see the importance of promoting and facilitating social interaction among employees.
Absolutely, that's been widely recognised. It's not the same as meeting up for a cup of coffee while you're having the conversation, but you can have a cup of coffee and have that conversation. It's not quite the same, but it's certainly better than not having that interaction at all. And that's something, as I say, that some organisations are almost putting in semi-formal processes to encourage people just to keep in contact. Doesn't have to be about business. It can be talking about the sports results from last night. It can be talking about last night's television or what's on the television tonight. These are things that are coming through in these conversations, and they keep the team together.
And obviously, as we're now in what you might call the post-pandemic phase or the recovery phase, the teams are beginning to move back to work, albeit perhaps in a phased manner. Do you think going forward, the new workplace of the future should be a combination of both virtual and physical presence?
The research certainly indicates that that's likely to be the case for, a majority of organizations. More than 50% of the people who took part in the survey actually indicated that the short-term measures that they've put in place for remote working, for home working, will remain post the pandemic crisis. Another 24% said that they'd only enabled the remote working for the pandemic. My suspicion is that as they in turn see that yes, life can go on, business life can go on, the value is still being generated. Sure, we need to tweak some processes, we need to change some things. That's business life anyway. But I think even those 24% might say, well, okay, yeah, this flexibility's maybe got some other angles to it that we can exploit. There's value there for us. These are going to last. And certainly the individual conversations we had with people certainly indicate that that's going to be the case. I was speaking with one senior executive who said that, yes, we always had remote working. It was in the contracts, things like this. But frankly, we never took it seriously before. Now the CEO works from home. So, it's fine for everybody. Everybody accepts that this is perfectly reasonable, a good way to function. And so far, the business results have kept that in well for us. So we can produce, we are still getting the customers.
Absolutely. And as you rightfully point out, with this increased flexibility, it also raises another salient theme that came out of our interviews and out of the survey, which is that health and well-being seems to be a more central priority now for leaders. Would you say this is correct?
Absolutely. Again, it's, back to the thing that I talked about earlier, where organizations have always valued or said that they valued their staff. Now they really do. And they're beginning to see that, okay, we've got people working, without direct supervision, but we've still got some legal responsibilities that we have to undertake to make sure that they are working safely, they are working in a healthy environment. So it might be fine to have somebody working from their kitchen table or even sat on their bed if they don't have access to the kitchen table because the children are there having breakfast. That these are fine for the short term, but in the long term, we've got to make sure that they have, good chairs to sit at, that they have a suitable desk to use, that they've got a decent screen. I'm lucky I've had a home office for years and years and years. Not everybody's in that position, but now it's brought to the fore again amongst managers that, hey, this is stuff that, we have to take seriously. If we want people to be productive, they've got to have the right kit, but they've also got to have the right work environment. And to touch on something that we talked about before, that social interaction, to make sure that people don't feel isolated by working alone, that they're still part of this team. That's something really important. And luckily, many organizations have recognized that, and they are taking steps to try and ensure that everybody can be both healthy and productive for the company. The two do go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. It just cast my mind back to one of our interviews where one of our participants said a quote that I believe is really pertinent here, which is that COVID-19 for him and his organization had represented a shot in the arm for people that have lived life perpetually on the go to suddenly sort of pause, take stock and realize what's important. And health and well-being is obviously, it should be the first priority in an ideal world. Obviously, perhaps it's been overlooked up until now, but there seems now to be real hope that going forward, we can see people more clearly as people.
Absolutely. And, that whole work-life balance thing has become far more visible now. For many organizations where their offices were in the center of big metropolises, that they might have had staff commuting for, 2-3 hours or more every day, which is both expensive, but obviously takes a huge amount of time out of people's lives. And so freeing up those hours every day, you're talking about a full work day that people are now freed, to do other things to maintain that work-life balance. That's been really positive. That there are a small number of people, though, where the opposite is true, where they might sit down at their desk early in the morning, and because they don't have that rush to get the last train out, they're still at their desk at 9 o'clock. But that's something where companies have got to recognize that there are some people you do have to rein back to make sure that they don't do too much, to make sure that their health is also maintained by not overworking.
Absolutely. Do you think the refocus on health and well-being will withstand the test of time? Do you think there's longevity in this refocus?
I certainly hope so, because I think that it's shone a light onto the value of people, and how if you can keep them mentally healthy as well as physically healthy, then that does help the organization. You have less sick leave, if nothing else. So you do end up inevitably with more productive people. And it's been shown time after time that if the staff are happy, then they do tend to be more productive. The business does better.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also mentioned something else which I think is quite pertinent to our next theme, which is the idea that people, historically it's quite normal to have an hour or more commute time, but now with remote working and greater time spent not needing to commute, you have that time reclaimed as such. It seems that there's a potential in recruitment for there to be an extended talent opportunity, that perhaps recruiters can start dipping into pools of people beyond the previous geography that they were confined to.
Absolutely. That's also come through very clearly. that people now say, hey, yes, we've proved that remote working does work. So maybe we can use that, as you say, to recruit from a far broader geographical pool than would have been possible before. It takes away part of the cost of getting to work as well, which can be very expensive. And so actually makes the whole job that much more attractive, as long as we give people the right tools and technology and we have these right interaction processes to keep that team spirit going. Then the potential is clearly there to expand that talent footprint quite dramatically, and could also bring in other people into the talent recruitment pool faster than before. There might be people with physical mobility problems, physical disabilities, that might make it very difficult to take such a commute into a central office, whereas they can work more than adequately at home and be a very, very productive member of the team. Equally, maybe people that have been on parental leave could get back to working for the organizations faster than before, not having to wait until children are full-time in school every day to work at different times of day. That flexibility has got all sorts of potential for helping organizations keep their skilled staff, as well as attract new staff into the organizations of all ages, from the very youngest Generation Z through to the old timers like myself.
It certainly bodes well, I think, as a conclusion, that we potentially workforces of the future could be not only more diverse but more inclusive. As you say, they could encompass a greater number of people that perhaps originally wouldn't have been able to realistically work in an office environment 9 to 5, 5 days a week.
Or wouldn't have wanted to.
Precisely.
Lots of opportunity here, and that's being recognized.
Do you think going forward that this conclusion will come to fruition? Obviously, it's a really nice, meaningful, uplifting theme to come out of the research, but practically, going forward as people start moving back into the office, or perhaps organizations start allowing flexible working going forward, I think time will tell, obviously, whether this will come to fruition.
Yeah, time will obviously be the ultimate judge here, but the opportunities are so large, and the search for the best skilled people has always been tough. And this now gives so much more scope to attract people to work for you if they don't have to relocate physically, where maybe their partner didn't want to relocate. If they don't have to undertake, 3 hours of commuting every day with all of the time and expense that encompasses. If, they are comfortable working from home, but might be less comfortable in a full office, then these are all great opportunities to get very skilled people, very productive people into the business, and actually keep people inside the business so that they're less likely to move on to someone that would offer these capabilities if they could avoid doing the 3-hour commute.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it would suggest that those organizations who do prize, innovation, flexibility, a creative approach, and those who have adapted and who continue to adapt by blending, physical presence with virtual, they're going to be the organizations, it seems, that are best placed to really attract and retain talent, and of course uphold inclusivity as well.
Flexibility is key. It's not just home working or office working, it's whatever suits individuals the most. And we've seen from the research that companies have been forced to trust their employees, to empower their employees, and now maybe they're beginning to see the benefits of giving that trust to their staff, and to enable them to work remotely, to enable them to make decisions remotely without having to pass everything through the chain. These are things with great potential. Hopefully they're here to stay. Certainly the early research indicates that that's going to be the case in the majority of organizations.
Thank you so much for listening. If you've got any feedback for us, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave us an email at feedback@freeformdynamics.com. Or if you'd like to hear more details about our research, you can find this on our website at www.freeformdynamics.com.
Thank you.